Did Iran just win the war?
They inflicted huge blows, not just to the region, but also to the world by taking the world economy hostage.
War between Iran and the U.S. has hit a pause, for now at least. It does appear that even Israel has calmed down a little bit with regard to Lebanon and its offensive against Hezbollah. And today, Saturday, April 11th, is the first day of talks between the U.S. and Iran and a wide cast of diplomatic actors in Islamabad, in the Pakistan capital. And this is a very important and significant moment, not just for ending the war, but in the diplomacy and the history of diplomacy for Iran. I'm Borzu Deragahi. This is my podcast. It's part of my newsletter. It's called Badlands. You can subscribe at borzu.substack.com. And I'm here today with a very special guest, an analyst that I really, really respect, who's always been just right on when it comes to analyzing affairs inside Iran and also in terms of its diplomacy. His name is Hossam Rossam. He is a former advisor to the UK embassy in Tehran, as well as a former senior analyst for the channel Iran International before it just became a total tool of Saudi Arabia and Israel. And that's when Hossein worked there. Hossein, welcome.
Thank you very much, Borzu, and thanks for the introduction. That was too kind, actually. I mean, it's you're always like that. I'm very excited to be here today.
Great. So what do you think? I guess the news of the day is the big story. This big, huge diplomatic gathering in Islamabad, Ghalibaf heading the Mohammad Baqir Ghalibaf, Iran-Iraq war hero, Speaker of Parliament, member of the Revolutionary Guard, this powerful, charismatic, very boisterous figure in the Iranian political scene. And then on the other hand, J.D. Vance, this kind of, bit of a mystery, also a kind of tough-talking, brash guy with a little bit lighter of a resume, yet, kind of portrays himself as this up by the bootstraps working class guy. He's really not. Anyway, what do you think of this whole negotiation?
I wouldn't see this war, the U.S.-Israel war against Iran, just a campaign to contain, to subjugate a rogue state like the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's bigger than that. It's about sort of slowing down the pace at which China is moving. It's about sort of shifting, let's say, geopolitics of the world and also the region. But specifically about the talks, I think what is amazing is that just a few days ago, President Trump was talking about destruction and obliteration of a civilization, sending a nation back to the Stone Age. And here we have American Vice President in Islamabad, a very, very powerful Iranian politician and leader, Mohammad Baqir Ghalibaf, in Islamabad, in talks mediated by Pakistan.
Isn't Pakistan kind of a client of China?
Pakistan is, of course, I have to say, they're very smart players. They are an American ally, a very close friend of Iran and Saudi Arabia, and also a very close friend of China, with huge Chinese investments in Pakistan. Something they realized is that, which is very smart, is that you need to have to be able to sort of maneuver between different sort of nodes of power in the world and be friendly to everyone and not trust anyone. So buy your weapons from China and go and praise President Trump and tell him that he deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. They are actually the perfect mediators for this business because they know how to negotiate, how to lobby, how to
flatter. Yeah, I see what you're
yes.
saying. Yeah.
I mean, all due respect to Omanis, But Omanis try to bring the sides closer to each other, and they try to be good mediators. But this is dirty diplomacy. This is this is moving from a bloody war to something else.
Yeah, and the country that is the former sponsors of the Taliban and run by the spy services, they know dirty diplomacy.
Yeah, and now fighting Taliban. So
yeah, exactly.
This actually tells us how quickly things can move, can shift. So I mean, you wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if in just a matter of weeks, American embassy in Tehran is reopened. I'm not saying
that would
that
be
is
a
going.
real shock. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. It would be shocking, but not surprising. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, it would be colossal. But about the talks, I think important here is that, of course, the aim was total subjugation of Iran, because to Americans, the Islamic Republic was more than just a rogue state. It was an impediment to bigger plans for the Middle East. You have an oil-rich, money-rich part of the world with all the tensions. And then you have Israel with huge regional ambitions. You have the United Arab Emirates, which shares those ambitions and wants to be
a part of that.
The sheriff, the deputy sheriff or the sheriff of the region. Then you have Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and India. And amidst all that, you have Iran, which is playing its own game, which is totally different. It is in isolation, but not in an isolation which is insulated.
Iran is containable. It has
exactly. It continues to pull strings in the region through proxies, economically, diplomatically, politically, and so in that for that new, let's say, architecture of the region, you need to get rid of this source of nuisance, which is Iran, and rearrange everything. And as President Trump said, it's all about oil. He's a businessman. This is what he said about Venezuela. He also said that about Iran, because we're at the end of the day, Iran has the third largest oil reserves in the world. That's important.
Well, Hossein, can I ask you a question? I mean, and this is a tough one to answer, but did Iran just win the war?
They say about big powers and small powers is that big powers need to win wars. For them, it's not just winning battles; it's to win wars and establish absolute power. But for smaller ones, it's to survive.
Right, but didn't they do more than survive, though?
They inflicted huge blows, not just to the region, but also to the world, by taking the world economy hostage. I think this is important. So, by Iranian standards, let's not forget that we are talking about a country, about a political system, about a state that everybody said was on the verge of collapse. It had just crushed down protests in Iran.
Thousands of people, killed thousands of people.
Yeah. And economically, it's in a bad position. Politically, it's in a bad position. So everybody thinks that this is the final blow and it would be over. So by not falling, by this not happening, yes, you can say Iran won the war. But in terms of real power, of what Iran really, we can say, can Iran prevent another war? I think that is the key question. If Iran prevents another war, if Iran stops Israel and the United States from attacking Iran again, I would call that victory.
Do you think that this war empowered the hardliners to an extent
I don't think so.
Irreversible? Okay. That's
No,
kind of
no,
countervailing. Go. Why do you say it hasn't
no,
empowered the hardline?
because at times of crisis, you see the tough guys
Yeah.
sort of out brandishing the flag, because that's the moment of crisis. So
Right.
you hear that extreme, let's say, voice of defiance coming out, but internally people have to revise so many things. Think about them. I mean, just like the Iran-Iraq war, just before it ended, it was so tough. And so they were saying that we're not going to stop. We will fight until final victory. We're going to go through Iraq. Iraq is just a stop.
Yeah.
And our ultimate goal is Quds and that sort of thing. But immediately after the war, hardliners did not disappear. They stayed. But at the same time,
and then at the same moment, didn't Iranians kind of expect a peace dividend at that point? Like expectations for a little bit more freedom and economic opportunity, didn't they actually go up in that period right after the war?
exactly. That's what actually happened. I mean, all of a sudden, politics of the country was so diluted, let's say.
And livelier as well. That's when it
Exactly.
started.
And
Yeah.
it all of a sudden, gaining wealth became the new sort of leverage of prestige. I mean, the day before, it was about simple clothes and being a devout Muslim, revolutionary, that sort of thing. And all of a
Going to the
sudden, driving a
front, et cetera.
BMW, became something else. I mean, and also, I mean, if I may add something here,
Please.
is that, we're talking about Iran, a system in which transition of power or replacement of politicians does not happen very easily. I mean, you deal with people who've been there for more than 4 decades, okay? And it's hard to replace them. You move them and then they somewhere, and then after a couple of years, they sort of pop up somewhere else, and they stay in those, let's say, power circles. And then we can also talk about power circles in Iran, if you like. But sometimes in a country like Iran, removal of some powerful figures not only removes some influential people, but also paves the way for rise of some more pragmatist people. And sometimes, I mean, you get rid of somebody. It's not just eliminating them. You actually open up the way for somebody else to come forward who's more pragmatist, because all this time that more pragmatist person was held back and could not do much. So, for example, you have someone like Ghalibaf and someone like Jalili, Saeed Jalili, who's a hardliner, and in Iran, when we had the presidential elections 2 years ago, many hardliners supported Saeed Jalili. Even some, including Mojtaba Khamenei, they tried to persuade Saeed Jalili to step down in favor of Ghalibaf, but they failed.
Yeah.
And Jalili insisted that he would stay in the race. So what happens? All of a sudden, you have the talks in Islamabad, and where is Jalili? You don't see Jalili.
Yeah, that was our biggest. That was many people's biggest fear when they killed Larijani, is that it would elevate Jalili. That was a big fear that people had.
And now what I hear from Tehran is that Jalili has been replaced by Ali Bagheri Kani, who's now in Islamabad. So Jalili is no longer. This is what I hear from some reliable sources. Jalili is no longer a member of the Supreme National Security Council. So that's a change.
When I was at the border in Van in Turkey, at the Iran-Turkey border, I spoke to some people and they were very much against the regime, but they were kind of resigned to the fact that it looks like the regime is going to stick around for a while. And they were saying, at least let Mujtaba be like MBS, like Mohammed bin Salman. Wouldn't that be great? And I wanted to ask you, what do you think of Mujtaba Khamenei? What do you know about him?
Truth of the matter is that even when people talk about what Mujtaba is like, they are, I mean, the most recent of anything we have about Mujtaba is from more than a decade ago. Apart from one short appearance he made about a year ago about his seminary lectures, he's kept a very, very low profile. What we know about Mujtaba is that, I mean, what is obvious is that he's the heir to a leader who kept saying there would be no negotiations, there would be no war, and he got killed in a war on day one of the war. Put aside the fact that for many in the world now, Ali Khamenei is another Imam Hussein, another martyr. Forget about that, which is going to be important in a few years' time, I believe. But Mujtaba bears that legacy. And he can be very tough. He can be sometimes a hardliner, because at the end of the day, he needs to sort of safeguard the system. And also, he has to protect survival of this single and sole Shia state in the world. There is no other. Even Muhammad Reza Shah cared about it.
Yeah.
That Iran is the sole Shia state in the world. But at the same time, he has to think about maintaining the system and how he can run the system. Many things have changed in recent months in Iran. They realize that there are millions of Iranians who are resigned to the fact that a military strike can save them. So he needs to address that issue. It's not a simple issue. It's not small. There are millions of
many people. He needs to accept and deal with the fact that many Iranians were embracing this war as the only solution.
Yeah. Exactly. So people were pushed to that point, and he needs to bring them back. He needs to not only consolidate power, but also rally support and bring about unity in the country. And he cannot just rely on whatever percent, 10, 15, 20,
whatever. Yeah.
Anything. Yes, they are diehard supporters of the Islamic Republic. But you cannot run a country just solely relying on those people. You need these other people too. So he needs. I think he would eventually be forced to revise many fundamental policies of the Islamic Republic.
I mean, many people fear that there's going to be, after this conflict cools down, a retribution campaign against dissidents, against those monarchists or people who welcomed the war in the first place. And there's going to be like a merciless crackdown, maybe even roll back the hijab relaxation and so on. What do you think? Do you think that's more or less likely?
I think hijab issue is over. I think that would be totally, beyond suicidal. It's something that is pretty much resolved on the street. The real issue is how much within the system this can go. People definitely expect to see changes in the state media, in the IRIB.
What kind of changes for more liberal or more openness, or like more?
I guess more openness, more representative of nuances of thought in Iran. People would expect to see economic sort of changes, because
That's
at the
the
end
main
of the day, whatever the politics of the country, people want to have decent lives. I mean, a good standard of living matters to everyone. It doesn't matter if it's in Iran, if it's in the UK, in the United States. People judge performance of governments based on that.
Thus, the people who
So,
said, at least let him be an MBS.
exactly. So to many people, we're talking about sort of the gray area of the population, because obviously we have one extreme which wants the Islamic Republic at any cost. We have another extreme that wants the Islamic Republic gone at any cost. But in the middle, there are millions and millions of Iranians who want change, who want better lives, who are very, very unhappy, frustrated, and angry with Iranian politicians, with the Islamic Republic. One day they may want them gone. Another day they may think, okay, if they can bring about real change, then we are fine. So people move in their ideas, in their way of thinking. But basically, what they demand, what they want, is decent life.
But don't you worry that there's going to be a crackdown in terms of human rights? They're already increasing the executions of alleged dissidents and so on. Don't you think even as much as they relax social restrictions, as much as they relax perhaps allowing a few critics on TV and so on, a few loyal Saeed Leilahs, for example, type people on TV to speak or something like that, that real political parties aren't going to be allowed, real political organization isn't going to be allowed, labor unions are going to be cracked down, everyone is going to be smeared as a foreign asset, every protest is going to be described as you're basically a Trojan horse for the Zionists or whatever they'll call them.
I see more of a Russian style Islamic Republic or Iran.
What does that mean? What does the Russian style mean?
That you have the iron fist of the state. You have a bunch of oligarchs, very influential. You have a very powerful figure running the country for more than 2 decades. You wouldn't see genuine, real democracy, freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of the media. You would see dissidents being imprisoned, sent on exile, and even said that they committed suicide, that sort of thing. And my reason for that is that you need intermediary institutions between the people and the government, between the masses and the rulers. And unfortunately, most of them are absent in Iran.
What do you mean can you give an example of an intermediary institution?
Genuine, let's say, city councils, political parties, independent NGOs. There was an effort made toward that that outcome in the 90s under Khatami, but all that was crushed by hardliners because they realized what would happen, because they realized that would mean transformation of the Islamic Republic into something else, and they could not tolerate that. And what happened was that the Islamic Republic actually shot itself in the foot by eliminating them, turning Iranians into, let's say, atomized the Iranian society, destroyed all sort of NGOs and political groups, even crushed the media. So what happened was that all of a sudden it was dealing with masses that no longer listened to the regime, and they were so frustrated that they welcomed any voice that said only sort of riddance to this despotic system is the solution. How? They didn't care. So I think for that reason, when we talk about these intermediary institutions, so that they can sometimes function as shock absorbers and sometimes sort of relay pressure and messages to rulers, unfortunately, the situation is not very good in Iran. So for that reason, we're not going to be, all of a sudden, we are not going to see political opening in the country. Social, yes, because that's after economic, that's the easiest.
Yeah.
It can happen. And everybody's welcome to play in the game. But political is something else. And to that, I may add that, as I said before, in Iran, we're dealing with power circles. It's not a rigid sort of vertical structure. And that is one of the reasons why many analysts, many politicians made this huge mistake that they thought by killing Ali Khamenei, the system would collapse. Because when we talk about Iran, we are talking about overlapping circles of power.
Yeah.
Yes, in the center, you have Khamenei's office, Khamenei himself, but these overlapping circles are connected to each other, and each influences some power. When Khamenei was killed, they stayed.
Yeah.
The system didn't collapse. Yeah, because of how intertwined and interconnected this whole system is.
What about this issue of this whole war was started on the basis of the premise of coming to the help is on the way, that the Americans are going to come and help bring about freedom in Iran. Do you think, or do you see any signs that this issue will come up in Islamabad today or in the next few days?
That's a very good question, actually. I think Iranians in their conversations with the Americans, when that happens, of course, because I think day one would be indirect, probably day two would be trilateral. I think they would definitely bring it up. And
the Americans would bring it up.
I think Iranian side would bring it up and say to the American side that this was not just a war, but also your president said that you sent machine guns, you sent weapons to Iranian opposition. You asked intermediaries to bring those weapons into Iran. You encouraged people to take to streets. And the Israeli side, which was the sort of co-campaigner in this war, also openly talked about regime change. President Trump talked about make Iran great again. They would definitely bring it up and say the level of hostility is such that it's not just about the Strait of Hormuz or nuclear issue program, or that sort of, it's beyond that. And you need to make a pledge here that you would stop that.
Do you think the Americans will push for you have to free the people or whatever? You have to bring about democracy or open up the country. You think the Americans won't push for that at all? Even after...
I don't think. Of course, these things are always rhetorical.
Yeah.
They're always mentioned. I mean, I don't know. Even when Iranians talk about, Bahrain, they're talking about repression and suppression.
Sure.
So politicians use these. They mention them, but do they mean anything? I don't really think so. I don't think democracy is a priority for the United States in Iran.
Yeah.
You can have a government in Iran that is totally in tune with the United States and crushes any opposition. And the United States would be happy. And Iran is not the first country, and this is not the first time in history that we see that. Bahrain is friendly to the United States. Is there total freedom. Even the United Arab Emirates is very friendly to the United States. It's a close ally. I mean, do we see that?
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, many countries, and I don't think that is an issue. Really, true democracy.
So basically, the people of Iran are not even going to play a role in this discussion, in terms of their democratic aspirations. That this war that was supposedly fought for the benefit of the Iranian people, in terms of its rhetoric, will have no such. It will have no benefit, really, in terms of the political aspirations of the Iranian people.
I don't have any precedents. I don't have any past cases in which there was a war, and democracy was brought to a country. I don't have any precedents of a war against the country bringing democracy to its people. I don't know of any cases. I don't know if anybody does. I think the best anyone can do is set the scene for gradual change, for transparency, for economic transparency, because even economic transparency is a bigger contributor to the rise of democracy in a country than political parties. When you have economic transparency, then you know where money is coming from and where it is going. So you cannot buy votes, and you cannot have like slush funds. So when you have that transparency, then you can have democracy. And I don't think, to be honest, I don't think Americans are that concerned about freedom of the press, freedom of politics, that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, this is not a major variable in how things happen in the world. You can have a full democracy, and Americans may not be happy about that. You can have Denmark, and the Americans think, we don't like you, and we want Greenland.
And what about the opposition abroad that played such a big role in the run-up to the war? Do you think this is the end of the line for the Pahlavists, the monarchists who were so outspoken and vocal and provided the kind of, how should we call it, the consent, the manufacture of consent for the armed conflict in the first place?
I think this is also, I said this is a moment of reckoning for Iranians. This is also a moment of reckoning for Iranian opposition. You cannot have a strong opposition if you do not have a real network on the ground, if you do not have the nodes and the connections on the ground. And if you cannot, you can mobilize people to hate something, but the real work is to mobilize people to move in a certain direction and want something that you are advocating. You cannot come out and say one day, say that Iranians welcome military intervention, and they're waiting for the cavalry, and next day say that we never asked for military intervention.
You're talking specifically about Pahlavi. He basically
Reza Pahlavi, that is something that he mentioned. In his previous interviews, he was calling on governments to join USA and Israel in their attack against Iran. But then the other day, he gave an interview to a French TV channel in which he said, we never asked for military intervention. So this adds to people's confusion. And I think for good, let's give it to them. The Pahlavists, they were very good in their PR, in their marketing, in creating, in selling the product, the idea of the product to millions and millions of Iranians. Because you need, politics is like
sort of launching sometimes it's like launching a product. You need
Sure.
good marketing, you need good advertising, you need good symbolism, you need good imagery, you need all that. You need colorful flags, all sorts of them, many of them. Um, but all that needs to be translated into something substantial and real on the ground. That I do not see. Yes, people hate, millions of Iranians hate the regime, and they want to see the end of the regime. But does it bring about real, let's say, groundwork or real mobilization on the ground, networks shaped? Reza Pahlavi and many figures in Iranian opposition, Republicans and others, they have been saying that we need connections with people within the regime, so that transition can happen more smoothly. But truth of the matter is that it needs to happen inside Iran. And they kept talking about defections. They kept talking about people who have turned their back to the regime.
It can't be fake. Yeah,
Even during the
you
war,
can't
it didn't
bluff.
happen.
You can't bluff
Yeah.
defections or revolution.
Even in Iranian embassies outside, abroad, it didn't happen.
Yeah. Like it did in 2009, even. Like in 2009, we had some defections. We had cracks in the system. And this time, there was nothing like that. I think an important question, war could restart again. In that situation, what's your timeline for how long Iran can continue? You know, if a similar onslaught begins again, what do you think? How long will Iran be able to withstand it?
It very much depends on on the scale of the war. If hell breaks loose, it wouldn't take long for the regime to actually to collapse or disintegrate. But real question is not sort of survival of the regime. The real question is, so what's next? What is the exit strategy? What is going to be achieved after that?
Hossein, if I could interrupt, didn't hell already break loose? 13,000 munitions dropped by the Americans alone, I think. Who knows how many? The industrial base collapsed. The factories, known factories collapsed, missile launchers collapsed. And yet, by the end of it, Iran was still posing a threat, still able to launch waves of missile, wave 32, wave 45, wave 76. Are we miscalculating? Is there a possibility that we're miscalculating Iran's endurance?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's exactly the point, that you may even bring down, let's say, a bureaucratic or political structure. That could happen. Iran is a vast country, and America has a huge army, and it's now getting help from Israel, the biggest air force in the region, and I think third in the world. But real question is, what is it going to achieve? Yeah. And I think it can definitely get worse. But like you said, real question is endurance. Would it totally eliminate the entity of the Islamic Republic? Definitely not. Yeah. Would it actually send shockwaves throughout the world? Definitely yes. Yeah. Would it actually cause, let's say, more chaos in the region and in the world? Definitely yes. So I think yes. I mean, there is a strong possibility. I mean, in 2025, Iran and the US were negotiating. Trump decided to attack. The Islamic Republic survived after 12 days. It was not in a great shape, but it survived. Now, like you said, hell broke loose, but still standing. I think there is still enough, let's say, endurance stamina within the Islamic Republic. All depends on the size of the attack. Well, they can send ground forces. They can occupy parts of the country. There could be total bloodshed. But would it really answer the question? Sometimes politicians, just like Iraq 2003, they prefer to sort of wipe the question rather than finding the answer. But the question is still there.
Yeah.
Do you erase it? But it's still there. And that's why you cannot say that Iraq is exactly what America wanted in 2003. Infrastructure, serious issues. Is Iraqi government totally friendly to the United States? No. Are Iraqi people big fans of the United States? No. America is actually the most hated country among Iraqis. Yeah. I think next or second to Israel or before Israel. I'm not sure. So I don't think that would answer the real question the United States has. And let's not forget, whatever happens, President Trump postponed his visit to China once. That was supposed to happen in April. He cannot go to Beijing and say, "I'm coming to Beijing, and I want everybody to sort of express allegiance to me as the master of the world in the middle of the war." The visit is rescheduled for May, I think first week of May. So whatever happens needs to be resolved by that date. Otherwise, I don't think Trump would be in Beijing as the winner of anything or as the lord of the world.
So one last question. I'm hearing different reports about how the mood is in Iran now. I would love to get your vibe, what you're hearing. What I hear, various things of, like, some people are triumphal and celebrating. Some people are depressed and want to get out of the country immediately. Some people are kind of angry, feeling betrayed by America and the baby Shah, Reza Pahlavi. Some people, and I heard one account said a lot of people I know are drowning in opium, which is really sad and believable. They're just kind of stuck in their houses in fear, and basically they've been kind of, self-destructing. What are you hearing, if anything?
I think more than anything, this is a moment of reckoning, let's say, for most Iranians. Because there is a time that you're desperate, frustrated, and you want the darkest scenario as the only possible way out. Because that is something imaginary, and it happens, and it doesn't produce the answers you want. So when you have a moment of reckoning, that means there comes a moment that you need to take responsibility more seriously for anything that has happened and anything that is going to happen. I think many Iranians are now confused, to be honest. Yes, there are, and just like you described it, we are dealing with a spectrum of people. It is not that when sometimes people say Iranians think this, Iranians think that. Definitely not true. We cannot say that. We are not even sure what majority of Iranians think. We know that majority won't change. That's for sure. But what translates? What change translates to
substantiate that the majority want change, you can just look at. You don't have to look at fake polling numbers. You can just look at the regime's own election results. How many people vote for the reformist candidate versus how many people vote for the hardline status quo candidate versus how many people just don't vote, which shows just like how much desire there is, how much discontent there is.
Exactly. Just like you said, even people who do not vote still there's a spectrum there, but even people who do not vote, they want change. People who vote, for example, for Pezeshkian, they want change. And then you have the hardcore support of the regime, the diehards who think, well, this other extreme of the spectrum can work, which is Jalili. So I think generally, I would say Iranians are most Iranians are confused. People want change, but they need to think about what change can really be like. And definitely, we would see more and more people thinking that maybe this was not the solution. We need to look for another way out of this. There would be disillusionment in some political groups, or let's say advocates of a certain approach to change in Iran. And we would see more of that. There would be revision in people's minds about how they want to see that change. There would be, I would say, I would use the term sort of a reshuffling of political plates. How some would sort of come higher, some would go lower, and that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, these are all sort of plates that shape the Iranian politics. But I think for many people, I would say, I can't say majority, but a strong portion of Iranians, it is that maybe this is not the way, maybe this is not the solution, and the help that we were sold, or the idea of help that we were sold, was not the genuine, real help, and it needs to happen another way. Like I said, because of the absence of those intermediary institutions, that process is not easy, and people need, I would say, people need help to discuss this, to think about it, to argue over it, to challenge the ideas and that sort of thing.
Hossein, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you on. It's been really great, and it's been really helpful.
Thank you so very much, Borzujan. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I'm Borzu Deragahi. This has been the Badlands Podcast. Thanks for listening in. Please subscribe at borzu.substack.com.